Welcome back, everybody, to the Classic Rock Podcast. And coming up in this month's show, we're going to be spending time with Michael Schenker, who's been celebrating not only 40 years of MSG, but 50 years as a musician and artist. Now, if you were growing up in the 70s and the 80s, you heard a lot of him, because from the early 70s until 1989, he appeared on no fewer than 18 albums. 3 with the Scorpions, 6 with UFO, 7 with the Michael Schenker Group, and 2 with the Macaulay Schenker Group. And in that time, as well as influencing a new generation of talent from James Hetfield and Dave Mustaine to Slash and Adrian Smith, he was heavily in demand as well. From the Rolling Stones, making an early inquiry, to Aerosmith, Deep Purple, Ozzy Osbourne and Whitesnake as well, all keen to get him to sign on. But it wasn't to be. And in 1980, after he jettisoned both UFO and the Scorpions, right on the brink of them becoming megastars, he set out on his own. And along with Gary Barden, a singer with no ego, Don Airey, Mo Foster and Simon Phillips, and produced by Roger Glover, August 1980, we got the first taste of MSG, with a debut album which still ranks as one of the best albums, not only of the year, but of the decade. So then, what's coming up? Well, we're going to be hearing from Michael. It is a telephone interview, so it's not quite the same quality as the studio chats, but he's going to be talking about his career, what the future holds, who he would still love to work with, and what does he do when he's not playing. Oh, and lastly, would he join the Scorpions on a farewell tour? You've come into this your 50th year of your music career, and despite the fact that we're living in very difficult times for artists in particular, you, despite all of the significant obstacles, have managed to produce one of your best albums since the 1980s. Did what you've achieved actually surprise you when you listened back to it for the first time?
Absolutely shocked. I was absolutely shocked because it all happened in 3 steps. And 2019, I realized that the 50th anniversary was going to come up. I put my first note on the recording. When I was 15, I wrote the first piece of music when I was 15. In Search of the Peace of Mind was the theme of my life, looking for fulfillment, contentment, etc. And, and I wanted to celebrate this with musicians, fans, and friends. And that was 2019. And then it's really hard to get musicians together from all over the world, which I experienced with Michael Schenker Fest anyway, people coming from all over. And so I actually gave up. And then my agent told me, but Michael, the album was released in 72. And I said, oh, in that case, I've got 2 years. And so I had hope again. And this time I decided to just keep it very simple, humble, 50th anniversary, put a compact band together, have one year on there, sing all the songs. I had a band together. I went actually on a cruise, the 70,000 tons of metal, and I started writing in the early 2020. Like January or February, and completed all my compositions, and then there was this thing on TV, which was the virus, and then the virus completely redirected everything back to my first original plan. But this time, I didn't have to do anything. This time, the phone calls were coming in from all over, and it was just very strange because when I ended up in at Michael Voss's recording studio in Germany, which was very hard to get to because I couldn't use my usual route and had to find a different way to get there. But anyway, we managed to put my compositions down, and then it was time for Ronnie to sing. And then when we called Ronnie, he said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. I don't want to go on 14 days quarantine."
You had to do 48 days quarantine, by the way, didn't you?
42 days total, yeah. I did it happily because it's Michael Schenker's 50th anniversary, and somebody has to sacrifice, and I did it happily, but if I wouldn't have done it, it would have never happened, And so, but I was just doing fine, and Ronnie, wasn't available, and so that's how everything all of a sudden went back to square one.
Now, out of adversity, you make great discoveries. You acquired the vocal services of Ralph Scheepers, who you'd never actually heard sing before, but when you did, you couldn't believe the quality of what you were hearing, and it literally blew you away.
Absolutely. When actually Drill to Kill was born, out of incredible circumstances, with Brian Tichy offering 6 drum tracks, one of the best drummers in the world, as a contribution to the 50th anniversary, and then he called back Michael Voss and said, Derek Sherrain, he also wants to make a contribution. And then we did this guitar keyboard jam. And when I listened, I was shocked, actually. I was absolutely shocked. And it's like when Ronnie couldn't do the start of singing, he was supposed to sing all the 11 songs. There are 10 songs on the album, but there's a bonus track which we use as a single and to promote the upcoming tour. I asked Amy, my partner, who was a bass player, and she has a very good taste. She's a music consumer, and I haven't been listening to music for 50 years. And so I said to her, we are stuck, do you have an idea? And she said, Ralph Scheepers. And I said to Michael Voss, what do you think of Ralph Scheepers? He said, absolutely. The next day they were recording and recorded another song. And then Brian Tichy calls up and offers 6 drum tracks. I said, you must be joking. And then, Derek Sherrain showed up. And I have never done a keyboard guitar jam. And I was wondering what, but it was suggested by Michael Voss, maybe it's good for the 50th anniversary to do something unusual, something new. And so when I heard Drill to Kill and I heard, Ralph singing, I was so blown away because that whole structure of the song was not, it was not on my plan. It just showed up. It just showed up from nowhere. And it's such a, in the face kind of a song, being 16, 18, 20 years old again, back to my roots. And I was so happy.
Now, this album is anything but predictable, and there is even a first on here, I think, for MSG, because we have a power ballad. It's called After the Rain, which is one of the standout tracks on the album. What's the story of the evolution of this song, and how did it come into being?
Yeah, that's funny. You know why? After the Rain, it was just Michael Voss, my co-producer. He said, look, you always write the beat plan for singers in case they get lost and need some help. And I was coming back from the hotel and he was playing me. And he said, Michael, this is what I did last night. to your power ballad. And I never have written a power ballad like that before, as far as I know. It just showed up in my compositions. And when I heard what he did with it, I was absolutely blown away. I said to him, Michael, this is so beautiful. Only you can sing this. And the funny thing is, the Queen of Thorns and Roses was such an unusual song, and he did something to that, with his vocals. And I said, Michael, this is, I cannot imagine anybody else singing this song. It was just like, I said to him, you have to do these two songs, and that's how After the Rain and the Queen of Thorns and Roses came out, and that was already 4 songs left for Ronnie Romero, and then of course we called him up again. And sorry, I still can't do 14 days quarantine. I'm here. And so, okay, don't worry, Ronnie. We'll call you back. And then Michael first said, what do you think of Julian Turner? I said, Julian Turner, one of my favorite singers. He's a fan. I'm a fan. The next, do you have a contact to him? He said, absolutely. The next day they were recording and another song. I just could not believe how everything happened and developed just by itself, and then of course Ronnie became available, and then he did a fantastic job. Night of the Dead and Sail the Darkness, Come On Over, In Search of the Peace of Mind, and Fight, the 11th song that is not on the album, which was also the drums done by Brian Tichy. And when we completed In Search of the Peace of Mind, which became the 50th anniversary celebration song, because that's when everything started.
Yeah, you mentioned this. It was where you first began to pen this, where it all began, in your mother's kitchen. Back home in Germany, in Saarstedt. Can you actually remember anything about that day? Sitting on the kitchen table?
Absolutely. It's like a video in my brain. It's actually, I was sitting on a chair. On the what do you call it? Like not on the chair itself, but on top of the chair, like where you lean on.
Yeah.
So I was sitting on there, and I was playing, and I created that song. And Michael Fox was sending me the credits, and it said Michael Schenker, real Schenker lyrics. We both had no idea about English. How could we have written any lyrics? I should have said Michael Schenker music, but I was 15. I was a kid in the sandbox. I was naive, and the Scorpions were already. Rudolph was a businessman. He wanted to be Elvis Presley. He was chasing fame. I never. I was just happy being the kid in the sandbox, playing the cover, and just. Never competed, never compared, never looked for fame, never looked for anything. I just had fun playing music and developed throughout my years with UFO and so on, and up to this day.
It's a poignant title, In Search of Peace of Mind, and lyric as well. Is that something that you were setting out to find even at that early age, and as an artist and as a person? And have you actually got to the stage where you do have a real peace of mind?
Yes, musically, absolutely, because without my middle years and declining Ozzy Osbourne, I love Ozzy, but I had to say no, because I left UFO. I did it for the love of my brother and Klaus, to help them with the Love Drive album, opening the doors for America for them, because I already had written hits in America, and and they couldn't carry on Matthias. He was not right, and so I helped the Scorpions, and then I had a vision, to be an artist, go to my humble self, find a singer who has no ego, and join me in my sandbox. And early in life, I found the inner spring of creativity, infinite creativity, and that's why I became original, not taking from the trend. And I was explaining this to Kirk Hammett and to Dave Mustaine, who told me they had never heard anything like this before. And I said, of course not. It came from within.
Immortal. I mean, this comes after 2018's Resurrection, 2019's Revelation. What's the story behind the title? Your philosophy from day one has been to be a creator as opposed to somebody that copies a style or a trend. Play to discover, I think you called it in the past, and you've shied away from listening to new music for 50 odd years. It gives you, or it takes away that fear of being influenced. How much pressure did that actually put on you to be original, to be a creator?
No, it's the only way for me. That's where the joy comes from. And so, to answer your first question, is yes, musically, because of my middle years, doing acoustic instrumental, electric instrumentals, cover versions with fantastic musicians, for almost 2 decades, and I could have never done that with Deep Purple, Ian Hunter, Thin Lizzy, or Whitesnake, or all the people, also, of course, who asked me, to help to be with them. I could have not done that, I mean, if I would have stayed with UFO, it would have been one of the biggest bands in the world. And but I had a vision of that fulfillment, and that's why it's so incredible that In Search of the Peace of Mind, it was almost like predestined, this is your life, Michael,
yeah.
and fulfill it, and don't sell out, and I didn't, and so at the end of the day, when I listened to the album when it was completed, it was a gift from heaven. I could not put it together myself in 2019. The second plan was the compact band. Then the virus came in, and then everything happened by itself, sprinkling from the sky. It was, like Michael, this is what we give you for not selling out, staying true to yourself for 50 years. And so musically, I am completely fulfilled, and I can do anything today. And in 2008, it started. I became 16, 18, 20 years old again. And I continued with my power, and that's what, I had done all my experiments, and I was done with that, and so now I went back to the roots. I went back to the beginning, and then, of course, with this album, I completed a full cycle.
To be the album title, by the way, Immortal. I mean, this comes after 2018's Resurrection, 2019's Revelation. What's the story behind the title?
Well, the title, I'm happy it doesn't come from me. It actually came from Nuclear Blast. Nuclear Blast in Germany, Markus Steiger is the boss of Nuclear Blast in Germany. He told me one day, Michael, if you wouldn't have been, he would have never been. Nuclear Blast would have never been. He would have never been a thrash metal player. Thrash metal would have never existed. And I heard that same thing from many different musicians later, and Australia just kind of, so many interviewers told me the same thing. There would have been no death metal, it's unbelievable. I find out all of this after all these years, and I'm glad I didn't find out before, because he would have, distracted me. But I just went, live in the now and keep moving and deal with today based on what's going on. So there's a virus, and now you have to figure out, how you're going to deal with it. And it's all based on circumstances, all of my results. And what was actually the question? I just wanted to...
It was the album title, who came out with it, but I think you answered it.
Okay. Yeah. And so because Nuclear Blast are Michael Schenker fans, and they're consumers, and they see me as such, immortal, especially after Resurrection and Revelation.
Yeah.
And they came up with the title, and I'm glad they did, because it would have not been something I would have come up with.
Listen, 50 years is a long time to survive and prosper in the music industry. Now, when you sit in a quiet contemplation and you look back on this 5 incredible decades, what gives you the most personal satisfaction and sense of achievement?
Well, my middle years was the part that was the most important. The first step, all the way up to Strangers in the Night and helping the Scorpions, opening the doors to America for them, was my first part of development. Then I had a vision. I want to be, I don't want that pressure. I wrote the hits like Lights Out and Only You Can Walk Here, etc., etc. And when I wrote Lights Out, I ran away because I thought it became a hit. And I was 21, and it was in '76, and I thought now the music business is going to put me in a box, and they want me to, put me in the pressure and write, hits. But Pete Way, he persuaded me to come back. I did Obsession and Strangers in the Night, etc., etc. So my middle years, and there was a period after I split from Robin McCauley in 1991. I think, around that era, from actually 1990 to 95 was the most enjoyable period in my life because I had so many spiritual experiences, and it was just unbelievable. I would not change that for anything, But in general, I must say, my whole journey has been such an enjoyment because of just keep moving forward, developing, finding, putting 3 notes together, create goose pimples, and be happy. And that's what I did over and over and over. And
I was going to say, over those years, the list of music royalty, really, that tried to tempt you to join them, from the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, you said Thin Lizzy, Deep Purple, Ozzy, just to name a few. Was there ever a moment, a small part of you that thought it might be a good idea, especially financially, because you said before that until your mid-30s, you never really made any money?
Yeah, I never made any money. When I was with the heavy-duty business people, because they always told me there is no money. And I was just that naive kid. I said to myself, I actually never missed any. I never missed any money because I had my necessities. I was happy. I was an artist. And, if you're a happy artist, you don't miss anything. As long as you have clothes and roof over the head and your guitar and something to eat, a couple of sandwiches a day or whatever. I never missed anything. until a limo driver told me, Michael, in 1990, he said, I had a conversation with him. He said, like, Michael, do you know that you actually get ripped off left and right? And I said, no, I don't really know. I'm happy. And he said, but think about it. I thought about it, and I went like, well, maybe this guy is right. If everybody is ripping me off left and right, maybe why should I continue teaming up with people? And that's when I started my journey in the middle years with the acoustic instrumentals, and and I did this experiment of writing the first Thank You album, and invested my last money and went on a public Greyhound bus with 2 decks, 2 guitars, traveled 10,000 miles, knocked on radio stations, and 80% opened the doors without appointment. And I said, here, this is, it was an acoustic album that I did all by myself. And so, they invited me in and did interviews, and I left the website, my website, Michael Schenker himself, and did the interview and actually had an idea to put the first 1,000 orders, their names on that album. And, I went all the way from Arizona, from Phoenix, where I was living at the time, over to Los Angeles, up to Seattle, down to San Diego, or the other way around, to Denver, all the way over to Dallas and New York, and up to Boston, left to the Cleveland, down Columbus, and all the way down to Key West even. And then back up on the left, Tampa, via Tampa. And when I went to Louisiana, all done on a public transport, on a Greyhound bus. And when I came home, I went, wow, I was rich. I was rich. I mean, there was so much mail. I had to employ 7 people to process. So I realized I had a secretary. I had a whole company. I had everything. I mean, I had 5 houses. I had London, Hawaii. I built a recording studio, first class, designed by the guy who did Don, the drummer of the Eagles, and Ricky Martin. And it was a Dutch guy. And I was going to build one on Hawaii, and I was going to build one in my first house in Phoenix. And then I met this girl, and then, I ended up in Cave Creek, and, had a leaf board, a first-class recording studio. And I was doing so well financially but I only did an experiment. I said to myself, Michael, you don't need to stick with those people who keep ripping you off left and right. I'm sure I can sell one album myself a day.
Yeah.
And that was the humble request. When I came home, I was rich. I could not believe it. It was just...
When you actually find that out, did it affect you negatively? Were you angry at how others had taken advantage of you in the early years?
No, I didn't, because I was actually, I believe in when the time is right, things will happen. And of course, when I came back home, all the money went straight into my pocket, not management or record companies or anybody. It all went, all the mail, all the fan mail of all my hundreds of thousands of fans came directly to my house. And each envelope had a check in it. unbelievable. And I said like to myself, wow, that limo driver was right, you know.
Did you give him a ring? Really did you give him a ring and send him a beer?
No, I have no clue. I think he was just a messenger. I have no clue who he was, you know. But I must say that it was an experiment that proved to me that he was right. But I never missed money, never looked for fame. I was always the kid in the sandbox. So it didn't really bother me that much. And the only thing that really bothered me was when I read the Love Tribe story that was a complete lie. That really made me upset, and I lost trust in my brother Rudolf. And, but other than that, it was just a growing experience. It was an experience to understand that there are these kind of people.
There's a lot of artists now that talk about releasing albums as being something of a futile gesture due to cost. Yet here you are, and this is your third in 4 years. What is it that gives you the drive to continue? Is there something left that you feel that you haven't yet achieved?
Basically musically everything. And that's it. That is the reason why I'm so happy with such a wonderful album that I could have never achieved myself. So I feel like it's a gift. It's a gift from heaven, you know, and it's a complete full cycle, completely completed, completed. I did everything I wanted. I had confidence in myself. I understood why should I play like Jeff Beck, even though I love him. You know, he's already doing it. Why should I do it? So I discovered Michael Schenker, and when I did, Kirk Hammett discovered Michael Schenker and so gave him a stand. And because I discovered Michael Schenker, so many people discovered, you know, something so fresh and new. Only because I went to the inner spring, you know, I didn't take from the trends, you know. There was no point in doing. There's nothing right or wrong, you know. Do whatever makes you happy. But I went my way.
No, it might surprise people, but there are a few vocalists that you would like to collaborate with. Now, firstly, this is a surprise, but he does share his birthday with you, Rod Stewart.
I love it.
And Frank Sinatra. So you have some luminaries there that share your birthday, but you quite like to work with Rod Stewart. Have you ever thought about getting in touch?
Well, you know, I had some silly idea once. By the way, Frank Sinatra has got the same birthday as you.
Yes, yeah.
and you know, I just had a silly idea because I had a keyboard player who was born, guitarist keyboard player, Wayne Findlay, also the same birthday. And one day I said to him, you know what, I want to put together 10th of January product, you know, like you know, finding musicians that were born of the 10th of January. And, you know, Rod Stewart was part of that. And, but of course, you mean, it's a different generation. You have so much respect for them. You feel shy asking them, you know, especially what they did. It's so remarkable, Jeff Beck and Rod Stewart. I mean, it's just so remarkable. You know, it's almost scary. It's a bit like Kirk Hammett. He was always shy to approach me, Peter Mensch told me, because I was his Father Christmas, you know, I was his Nicholas. He was so shy to approach me. And the same for me. You know, I could not approach a generation, you know, 10 years before me that inspired me and gave me so much joy and pleasure. You know, even though Rod Stewart is a pop singer, but he wasn't when he did "Rock Me, Baby."
Yeah, absolutely.
That was unbelievable.
But you did jam, by the way. A lot of people may not know this. Back in the 80s, when Peter Mensch was the manager, there was a moment when we nearly had the creation of, I don't know, some form of supergroup, Coverdale Schenker. You jammed with Coverdale.
Yeah, I mean, when I fought my way away from the Scorpions, which was really tough, and they hated me to lead them. And Peter Mensch found out, and I lived with him for 2 years, and he wanted to do business, and he put all sorts of different combination of possibilities for the first Michael Schenker group album. And it went through, I actually rehearsed with Joey Kramer and Tom Hamilton, the rhythm section of Aerosmith in Boston, when Steven Tyler got sick. And Peter Mensch said to me, "Michael, the rhythm section of Aerosmith is available. Fly to Boston and start." And so I went to Boston. Before that, he said to me, "Go to Aerosmith, meet the guitarist. Fly to New York." I kind of wondered, what am I doing here? Starting, I just finished with UFO. I already done all of that. This is not what my new vision was, And Steven Tyler got very sick, and so the rhythm section was available. Aerosmith broke up, and so we were rehearsing together, starting on my compositions. So it was a really big room, and there was this guy coming into the door. He looked like the other guitarist. And when he saw us on stage, he started running through the door. He must have run through the hospital of Steven Tyler, saying, Steven, you must get well better soon. Michael Schenker is stealing our rhythm section." And then, of course, Steven got well and carried on with Aerosmith. And then there was Rush, invited me to the Trident studio we were very good friends because we toured together with UFO, and we know each other so well, actually friends. And they were recording in London at the Trident studio, and they invited me and actually offered me to help me with my first solo record. I said, "Wow." And I made a stupid joke. I said, it's Getty Lee and Neil Peart. And I made a stupid joke, and I'm very sorry, Alex. I'm so sorry. But I said, and Alex can do the coffee. It was not a good joke. It was not a good joke. Yeah. So but it was remarkable that all of these different possibilities. So the first idea with Cliff Bronstein and the brains behind Metallica and Def Leppard and AC/DC, etc. I was living there. One day Peter Mensch comes to my bedroom and throws on my bed throughout the night from Def Leppard, and I listened to it. I said, like, this is terrible. It's like, don't bother, But he did, because he knows what sells, and I don't.
Now listen. A lot of people know you as the guitar genius, the rock god. What do you do aside from the guitar? I mean, are you a great cook? Are you a wine connoisseur or a beer lover? Are you a movie buff? What does Michael Schenker do aside from play the guitar?
I'm just simply an extreme creative person. I love architecture. My dad was an architect. He probably built a whole village throughout his life. And I love and I have a sports car, the safety car, the Mercedes AMG GT, which has got a very small trunk, which holds just, one amplifier, a couple of guitars, some clothes. But I go up and down the coast. I don't have the radio on, and I meditate and think. And, that's one of the things. Then I have a beautiful property, and I design things all the time. The latest thing that I want to design is a building and get a very expensive telescope to watch the stars and put it into that building and just watch the sky in my last years. And that is something I really look forward to. And maybe I will discover a UFO.
That is a very, very good line. That is a perfect line. Perfect place to end. I want to say one other thing. Are you a fan of soccer? Do you watch football or at all?
I was.
Were you a Hanover fan? Were you a Hanover fan?
I was 6 years old when I was joining a football club, FC Saarstedt.
FC Saarstedt, yeah.
Yeah. And I was 6 years old, and when I was 11, it was when I was 9, I started playing the guitar. When I was 11, I had the first band, and so all of a sudden weekends were either play football or play music, and I had to make a decision. I was not actually a great soccer player, but I enjoyed it. I had so much fun doing it. But, I was not the best, but it wasn't important. I just enjoyed it so much. And but then it came to the point, to make a decision. And then I decided for music, of course, which was my real talent and enjoyment. And so, I obviously you're always a fan of the next big city next to you. So, even when I came over to England, I've been living here for 12 years now. I always looked. I was always interested how Hanover was doing. But I enjoyed. The Manchester. Like when Ronaldo joined.
But you, growing up, you must have had, your heroes must have been Beckenbauer, Gerd Muller, Sepp Maier. When I was completely into it, of course, I was living in Germany and I was young and I was 9, 10, 11 when I actually met Klaus and we formed Copernicus. I was 14, and I watched the big game between England and Germany at his house, at his parents' place, and so Uwe Seeler and all those Uwe Seeler,
people, absolutely, Overrath and Beckenbauer and all of those guys. I loved them. I loved watching them. I was almost it was like an addiction, to see them playing football on TV.
Last question before you go. I only say this because I saw this in an interview you did. It must have been a few years ago now, and the interviewer said, "Look, if the Scorpions embark on a goodbye tour to the world, are you going to be there?" And you said then, yes, that you would be if it was a final goodbye. Would that still be the case today if they set out on a final tour to say goodbye and were hanging up the live equipment now for good? Would you take part?
Never again, because when they approached me to do the Scorpion set box 2015, I read the lie of the Love Drive story. I was so disgusted and upset, and I look back today and realize how much, Rudolf has used me, distorted my image by, tricking me into asking me if he can, because I had a contract with the Scorpions for the Love Track album. As a sixth member, they left the picture out. Today, I understand why. And they left credits out. And because I was already a hit in America, and then I fought my way away from the Scorpions because I had my own vision, they were so upset. And Rudolf had to think of a plan to make it look like there was nobody missing. So they took the picture off, and Rudolf persuaded me, asked me if he can play the black and white flying V. His name was Schenker. He looked very much like me on some pictures. And so by taking the picture of the Love Drive album, made it look like there was nobody missing. America was going crazy when they heard that I joined, but somehow they managed to pull it all through with Rudolf, using all these tricks. And so I basically say, I don't want to open another can of worms. What I found out in 2015 was so overwhelming. I don't want to know anymore. And you have to remember, I played with Hermann Werber and Francis Buchholz for 5 years. I know more about Rudolf than Rudolf will ever know. And I love Rudolf as a brother, but social distance is needed so I don't get tricked into further inconvenient situations. Rudolf is a bully. I don't connect with bullies. It creates turbulence. No normal person connects with bullies. And I just simply don't trust Rudolf. So therefore the answer is never.